If you look at the sort of partners whom people select to mate with versus whom people select to try and form long-term relationships with them. I mean, many men would not choose to be with the woman that is most attractive to everybody because they don't have the confidence they could keep her. Even if she's not a flirt and didn't have a wandering eye, some deliberately wouldn't want to be with the most beautiful people, even those who tend to match up pretty closely in terms of attractiveness. When people say the relationship is hard, the only really hard part about a good relationship is just dealing with oneself and making sure that you're staying in that mode of caretaking. If one is mainly focused on taking good care of the other person, provided they're also focused on taking good care of you. To some extent, we're good at taking care of ourselves. Everybody flourishes and everything gets better. Freud was at least right about one thing, which is that the brain circuitry that you use to develop attachments to your caregivers, mother, father, or other care, do not disappear when you hit puberty. They are repurposed for romantic and sexual relations. And so this is why the whole notion of anxiously attached and secure attached stems from childhood attachment patterns, but it carries over to romantic relationships. So that the relationship with your mother, father, and probably other close people to you at your young age has some kind of ripple effect on hydrosexuality develop. Like what fantasies you might have, all that stuff. The thing that's important to remember, the transfer of circuitry from one role to another is that, and it's certainly consistent with psychoanalysis, that gender is interchangeable and sex is interchangeable. So for instance, let's say you've had a wonderful relationship. Let's say this way to let's take a hypothetical person. Let's take a young woman who has a wonderful relationship with her father and a just terrible abusive relationship too. Just for sake of example, she then goes into adulthood and she is drawn to very abusive men. People need to know what they need, so knowing what you need and what you crave is important. And then once you do that, you can create the relationship you want. I've seen that over and over again, and people are different, but to be careful about the questions you ask in a relationship too, you have to make sure you want that information. And it's not just about people's past, right? If you ask somebody how they feel about something about you, and they tell you that may be soothing, it may be intensely stressful, you have. Here's one thing I know for sure. For a relationship to work, you have to be brave. You can't go in there fully protected, and yet you also can't go in there with no boundaries because you'll end up beat up. If you want to be a warrior, be prepared to get hurt. If you want to be an explorer, be prepared to get lost. And if you become a lover, be prepared to beat. Love. I'm putting together a series on sexual health. Everything from the menstrual cycle, which both men and women should understand, of course. Understanding arousal, understanding. For instance, a lot of people don't realize this, but that, orgasm is the consequence of activity in the sympathetic, meaning the stress arm of the autonomic nervous system. Whereas arousal is the consequence of the activity of the parasympathetic, the calm aspect of the autonomic nervous system. It's counterintuitive, and it kinda works like a seesaw. I mean, there's arousal, then there's relaxation, then there's arousal. But then immediately after orgasm, and in a male's ejaculation, what ends up happening is there's a rebounding of the parasympathetic nervous system, which leads to oftentimes people feeling very relaxed or falling asleep.